Welcome, everybody, to Dynasty 365, the Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast here for Fantasy and Frames. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards. We got Justin Taylor, a.k.a. JT, and we got a special guest from the Dynasty Evaluation Show. Guys have been crushing it. Both him and JT have been crushing it, like just with rookie spotlights and guests and just so much. We got John McGlynn joining us, John McGlynn 75 on X. And tonight we're going to be talking about, our breakdown of a startup mock draft we did recently, where members of the fantasy football community got together, took part in our mock draft, and we're going to give you a little idea of, like, at this point in the off season, where is the value? Where can you find value if you are in fact doing a startup at this point? But before we get into all of that, let's get into this. All right, well, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. We already got Vince in the chat. Good day, legends. What's going on? What's going on with you, Vince? We saw you, I believe, I think I saw you on my wrestling pod yesterday, if memory serves me correctly. So great seeing you here on Fantasy and Frames programming. Let's get to our guest here, John McGlynn. Man, dude, you so a little behind the scenes, like it's like Saturday night, everyone's getting ready to go to bed wherever they're at. It's like 11 p.m. and I'm exaggerating totally here when I'm telling this story. It's 11:59 and everybody's getting ready to go to bed in their respective lives. John McGlynn drops in the chat on our Slack chat. I have a bazillion shows and a bazillion guests and a bazillion players to talk about next week, and then next week after that, and the week after that. And both he and Justin Taylor, JT, you two on Dynasty Evaluation have been having great episodes talking about rookie spotlights on various players, have had tremendous guests on. Like, you all have just been bringing it every single day. I said it this morning when you guys had Alan on from RotoWire. You all are the hardest working tandem in all of fantasy football during the day. It's literally, it's just fantastic. It's great having you on. Thank you very much for joining Dynasty 365, John.
Oh, it's awesome being here, man. I do these shows because I like doing this stuff. Some people hunt, some people fish, some people do all that, whatever. This is my version of hunting. This is my version of fishing. This is my version of my best hobby in the world. And my wife's working a ton of overtime right now, and my kids are all grown up. So I'm like, yes, my schedule works out where I can do these shows. And I'm talking to awesome people who I've met at the expo, and I'm talking to awesome people I've met at, drafts, NFL drafts. And I'm talking to awesome people who I do content with before, who've been on my show before, who I've been on other shows before with too. So it's kind of hard scheduling, but at the same time, I love watching all the all-22 tape on guys I'm about to talk about. I love looking at all the research what everybody else has already talked about and seeing what I know as a football player who played my whole life, what I'm looking for. Like, what are these guys doing wrong that I think, what are they doing right? And I like saying things and people correcting me at the same time, saying, oh, yeah, well, you said this, but he does that because so-and-so. And I've learned from having guests on that my process, too, what I'm doing wrong or what I'm doing right, or I say, no, he was wrong about that. I think I did this, And having someone like JT on the show also that, watches 100 million hours of football every week. He coaches, he played, he knows all this stuff. It just works so well that me and JT, even though he steals most of my players in every one of our drafts, he's still, he's a great co-host and a great person to have on the side. And I just appreciate that I have an outlet like Fantasy and Frames to be able to put this content out on and just have a good time. This is what I wanted to do. My kids are older. I finally get a chance to do it. And it's like, there's not enough. I wish I was retired now and I could do this like 7 days a week, and just all day long. This is what I wanted to do. This is what I've been wanting to do for the last 20 years. And now I'm finally starting to be able to do it now.
JT is basically your Jaws or your Ron Jaworski. I've sat down and I've watched a bazillion hours of film on this player. And let me tell you what, this guy, he's
the co-host with the mo-host. That's what I call him.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes I feel like I miss games. I'm like, man, I didn't get to see that game do that. And then I'm like, other people say something. I'm like, God, I do watch a ton of football. Like, my girlfriend's like, you watch a ton of football. I'm like, my whole week is like totally set around practices when games are playing. I'm like, and I'm just a fan of too many teams, to be honest with you. So I'm like, when's the Syracuse game on? When's the Missouri game? When's the Illinois game on? Steelers, Colts. Like, Bears game. So yeah, I watch way too much football, but you know what? I freaking love it. So
I've been to JT's house a couple times already. He only lives not too far from me, so about an hour and a half, whatever. But I go over there and he's got this basement. It's all set up. These 3 TVs, watching game after game. His front room's, the awesome big TV where you watch all the sports all the time, anywhere in his house. It's like he's got a TV in the kitchen at top where he's doing the dishes and shit like that. He's got TVs everywhere. It's awesome. It's a great place to be able to watch sports. And you better bring my sweatshirt next weekend when we go to the.
I'm glad you reminded me. I have it hang it up. I was like, I gotta pull it out, and I literally need to set it on top of my bag so I remember to bring you back your sweatshirt this time. Good call, John.
Very good.
Got Vince in the chat. Love hearing that, Coach. Wish my kids were a bit older now. So my wife today before we got on Shoot the Gap, I was like, yeah. So I got back-to-back podcasts. She's like, I know. But you know who you have to apologize to. And I'm like, no. He's like, Nathaniel, who's busy there sleeping. And I'm like, well, he's sleeping. He's like, no. Apologize to your son. And I'm like, you know what? I'll apologize now. But when he's older, he'll be doing the podcasting with me one day. So it'll be
to get him on the research. He's gonna have to be starting to do some research for you.
Hey,
he'll be better at that than before you know it. Like my son would he figured out iPads and stuff all the time. Like I had to get him his own because he would use my phone and he would hang up on everyone calling me and stuff. He figured out how to swipe them closed all the time to not interrupt his videos. And then I didn't know I was missing all these phone calls and stuff at work. And I finally was like, I've got to break down and buy him an iPad because he's got to get off my phone in the car because people are calling me constantly and I don't even know that he's just skipping phone calls. So, and believe me, they figure out that stuff so fast these days. He'll be able to figure out how to search up Fantasy Pros and every other website. They'll be telling you stats. It'll be great.
Get them into tumbling and gymnastics right off the bat, just so they get that body. That's what we did with all our kids at 1 or 2, 2 years old. They had the partner strict at a local place has like tumbling and that kind of stuff. Or your kids get to learn how to use their body and then get them right into wrestling. That's the way to start to get a kid as an athlete.
I wrestled not well, but I wrestled in high school, so I can understand that. There is one thing I will expose Nathaniel to, who just a little over 4 months old. Have you seen these videos where parents take their babies swimming, the swimming lessons?
Scares me. Yes.
The instructors just chuck them like cannonballs into the pool. And they're like, oh, it's supposed to help them learn how to hold their breath and breathing. I'm like, you chuck my kid like that, I'm chucking you after them.
Yeah, you got to go to McDonald's or something like that when a swimming class is going on. So
I started the swimming classes a little bit older. I wasn't super comfortable with the just absolute baby. I had a pool though, so I would take him back and set him on a mat thing and kind of push him around because he just liked pushing around. But I don't know how your son, but my son hated to have his face under the water when he was little. It just absolutely hated it. Just a little bit underwater and he'd freak out. So I was like, do not throw him into the pool. He will lose his mind. So yeah, those ones are crazy when people just chuck him in there. I'm like, I don't think we're supposed to do that anymore. I know that was a big thing in the 60s and 70s. They'll swim, they'll make it work. But it's I don't know if we're allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah, it's making a comeback. Not here, it's not. No. But I digress, folks. Yes, this is how it rolls when we're the late show. We kind of go off to the rails. John, we were talking earlier, JT and I, on Shoot the Gap, that since we were used to being the late show, I would tell everybody before us, you only have an hour. Stick to the hour. And then here we are, going hour and a half, potentially even 2 hours into the show. And it's just we can't do that on Shoot the Gap, but you know what? We can do it on Dynasty 365 now.
Yeah,
so
buddy.
I don't know what you walked into.
Is that a White Castle bag behind you that says "Never Give Up"? Is that White Castle? What is that?
That is a John Cena towel that he gives out.
Oh, okay. I'm fat. Everything's food with me, and I look like a White Castle bag. So
I love me some White Castle. I think I saw a picture that you and the missus went to White Castle
for Valentine's Day. That was great. That was great.
You know what? We have to make a reservation at White Castle. They have Valentine's Day. It's 2 months ahead of time. You got to get it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh man!
And you don't just walk in there and get White Castle dinner. They turn you away. It's booked for 2 months ahead of time to go. It's a big deal, man.
Dude, I did not even know that. That's wild.
Yeah.
Oh my god. See, things you learn every day, folks. White Castle, Valentine's Day, a hot ticket. But loved it. Loved White Castle. Loved the movie. Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Everything White Castle related. You can't go wrong. Speaking of things that can't go wrong, I think we're going to see, folks, when we analyze and break down this mock draft that we did last week. And again, thank you everybody who participated. There's some, and again, this is all subjective, right? This is from my perspective, John's perspective, JT's perspective of things that we may or may not do. But I think we're going to get a good idea of, like I said, folks, where things are at this point in terms of assessing player values, whether they're veterans, whether they're second-year players, which technically they're veterans, but you get what I'm saying, the younger players versus the older players. So let's just get into that right now. Let me press some buttons and do some things, and then we'll do this. Let me do something like that. Okay, cool. So again, it was a 12-team Superflex PPR tight end premium draft, Dynasty startup mock draft, third-round reversal. And so being the Superflex nature, not really shocking. The first, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks, quarterback with Jaden Daniels going 1 overall. John McGlynn, let me start with you right there. Ahead of Lamar Jackson, ahead of Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. Is now this may be the homer in me, okay, being a Commanders fan, but that doesn't seem as crazy for a dynasty, or is that crazy to you? Can't hear you.
No, it's not crazy. I myself would have probably took Josh Allen or just the leaps and bounds that, like me and JT said on the show before, Lamar Jackson had a better season last year than he had this year, and people wanted him to win the MVP. But Lamar Jackson, when you watch Lamar Jackson play football now, it's like he's got all the Infinity Stones now because he can stay in the pocket, he can still run, he does everything. I would take Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson over Jaden Daniels. That's probably a homer, a Jaden Daniels homer, or someone who wants to just get youth instead of Josh Allen's only like 27 and Lamar Jackson is 29, 28, something like that. So I'm really not sure why you'd want to, pass on the talents. I wouldn't take Hurts over Daniels. I'd probably still take Daniels over Hurts for fantasy wise. And I think Burrow and Hurts are pretty even to me. So I'd probably go quarterback 3 or quarterback 4, but I don't fault the guy. I mean, it's 3. So I've taken Trevor Lawrence in that spot before in drafts a couple of years ago. So, it is what it is. I don't, it's not terrible at all whatsoever. I could see the path of somebody taking Jaden Daniels, because if that's all he's going to do is improve the next couple of years with what he's done already on a team that's building around him. I mean, really, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback for a couple of years, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, for me, if you're taking Jaden Daniels there, you're in the mindset that he is Lamar Jackson. He's the next Lamar Jackson. Like, this rookie season is repeatable for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And you're like, hey, instead of taking Lamar, I want to take the younger Lamar, the guy that can run, can pass. If you think that he is that guy and he's not going to see regression, then in a startup, why wouldn't you take the younger guy? Now, I probably, saying that, after I looked at his draft, I was like, oh, he kind of went older with his draft. So I was a little super shocked. If he would have went real young with his picks, I'd be like, okay, he's taking, Daniels because he wants to go young. But then he actually went older with a majority of his picks, which does surprise me that he didn't go Lamar in that situation. But I also think we've got to remember there's always a little bit of recency bias on these things. Remember CJ Stroud last year? After the big rookie year, CJ Stroud was going top 3 in some drafts. Some people were taking him number 1 overall. And now you still, after he didn't have as good of a year this year, I still think CJ Stroud's a stud. But after having a down year in his second year, we've seen him drop to the end of the first round, out of the first round in some drafts. So I think that always matters a little bit. I mean, you see the fact that Mahomes is going a little later. I mean, you're going to get it a little bit year to year. I mean, Herbert is a guy that we've seen go way up and way down, depending on where people feel about him. Trevor Lawrence is a guy me and John both love, but he just keeps dropping more and more in these drafts. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was a top 8 guy last year, or at least the year before for sure. And now you got him 4 or 5 in this league. So you're going to see a little bit of that year to year. Here's the thing is, if Daniels has an okay year next year, not quite as good as he had this year, there's no way he goes 1-1 next year in drafts. But I think people are hoping that they're getting the low end. You're getting him on the rise, like he's just going to get better every year. And if you believe that, which is a legitimate belief, then it is hard to kind of fault you to take the younger Lamar Jackson one spot ahead.
Yeah, it makes sense. What I really find interesting, though, to keep going on into this draft, we saw a drop off, even though it's super flex. We saw best player available starting to go a little bit over the next 2 picks with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Bijan, for me personally, in a super flex PPR, tight end premium, I'm not touching running back unless it's either Bijan. But even then, I feel dirty taking him in the first round. I think I would have stayed with a more of a upside wide receiver in that point. But then we saw the back end of the first round, quarterbacks kind of make a run back to being, the first couple picks here. Bijan Robinson though is a polarizing player. Got to where he was past couple seasons, not exactly the overall RB1 we were hoping him to be until we saw towards the end of last year the Falcons really started to put a lot of faith and put a lot of snaps, more importantly, into him, and we saw what what fantasy managers were hoping you were going to see out of Bijan Robinson.
I just traded a 103 to 207 and a 305 to get Bijan in the league, and I thought that was a steal.
So you would be okay with taking him where he went into the first round here in this mock draft?
Well, this is a startup. This isn't a rookie draft. So, I mean, I traded rookie draft picks 103, 207, and 305. So in the first round here, that's pretty close to where he's at. But, man, I don't like running backs and startups in the early rounds. It would be cool to get a guy like Bijan, but I'm not passing up Justin Jefferson's and Jamar Chase's and Malik Neighbors and things like that to get Bijan. Bijan is another probably. I don't think he's going to have the same career. I mean, he's not going to be the same running back until he's 30 years old. I'd rather take Brian Thomas or maybe not Brian Thomas, but probably Malik Neighbors, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, all those guys I would definitely take before I took a running back. So it would be pretty close. I wouldn't take him probably until like the mid-second. If he was there, that's where I think value would be.
For me, if I'm going running backs, in a startup, it completely is dependent on where I'm drafting. If I'm drafting at the beginning or the end of a round, because for me, I tend to go running back a little earlier than other people, just because so many people are avoiding running back. I tend to go and grab them, but I tend to grab them a little more if I'm like this draft where I'm the end of the second and a third round reversal. I'm in the end of the third and beginning of the fourth. There is probably where I'm piling up running backs. I like what Jeremy did with Barkley at 212 and Breece Hall at 312. I would have loved to get JT if that was me there at 312. If I could have got Barkley and JT,
it's a reversal. JT,
phenomenal. That's what I'm saying. With the reversal, he got picked right before him. Yeah. But that's where I'm liking those guys. If I'm near the end of the first round, I have done some where I go running back, but I tell you what, once I've looked at it later, I haven't been super happy with it. So there's a lot of times I'm like looking at it, I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. I would tend to go what Jeremy did here at the end of the second, but going that early for Robinson and Gibbs and a startup with all those running backs or with all those wideouts and quarterbacks around, to me, that's a tough call. It's a tough call there.
John, I need an anchor running back in my first round. I mean, I need an anchor quarterback in my first round. I kind of, even if it's at the 112, getting Caleb Williams or getting, getting someone like that. I would take a young anchor quarterback before I took a running back for sure. That'd be my first round pick in a super flex startup.
If you had your pick of where you were drafting, whether it's the bookends or the middle of a startup, John, where would you rather be drafting from?
Always at the 12, especially in a reversal.
Yeah.
I just feel like, 1 or 12, it doesn't matter. I'm definitely a bookend guy. It's nice with the reversal. Reversal's only for superflex drafts, in my opinion, because of the fact that a guy, of course, you see right now, he took Jay Daniels at 101. And then there's 13 to 11 quarterbacks taken after that. You need to get some kind of, if there's a second quarterback available at the 312, that kind of deal. Or anywhere around that, in that third area, you're probably not going to get him, unless I guess you could have got Trevor Lawrence or Jared Goff or Prescott or something later. That guys got taken here, but you need to get an anchor quarterback at 101, and then 212. You need to get I would probably go receiver there, but Barkley's not a good pick. This is more. How long what does Barkley got? Probably 2 years left, maybe.
Yeah, like I said, it just depends on what your window is. If you're playing 2 to 3 years, I don't mind Barkley up because, like, I mean, he was 27, he's going to be 28, but like he didn't look like he was slowing down at all.
No.
So, I mean, and he's an elite athlete. I think he's a guy that's, kind of like a Derrick Henry. He could play and still be good in his 30s. Is he going to be the number one running back? Maybe not, but he's going to be good. So that's why I was a little surprised with the Daniels pick, because I'm like, if you're going to go Barkley, Breece Hall, Baker Mayfield, Kittle, Henry, the next 3 or 4 picks, I'm like, man, I would have went Lamar or Josh Allen I'm going to go an older team. And maybe he was thinking, hey, I'm going to go younger. And then all the younger guys went, and he was like,
I'll take Henry and
I've had that
Adams.
happen with me where I think I'm going to draft super, super young. And then everybody drafts super young. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, maybe I should start going win now. All these older guys are falling to me. So you got to be able to be on your toes and make adjustments, because maybe that's what he was thinking. Like, I'll get a Gibbs or somebody on the way back, or one of the young wideouts, and then bam, everybody got taken. He was like, I guess Barkley, that can happen. So
yeah,
definitely interesting there. And I also do, just before why I'm thinking about it, I do think quarterbacks fall in mock drafts and superflex startups more in the mocks.
Agreed.
Yeah.
When you actually do the actual draft, I think they get pushed up because people start getting real nervous that they're not going to get somebody. I think people are willing in mocks to kind of play it out a little bit and see who gets to them, where in a real startup, I think people get a little nervous. And some of these guys, like this Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Prescott, Goff, all going in the 4th. I think you maybe see those guys creep into the 2nd, 3rd round.
Right.
Because people start getting a little nervous that they're going to miss out on QB. I think people are willing in the mocks sometimes to pass on QB to see how late they can get them.
I mean, Rashee Rice went before Trevor. Rashee Rice went before like Trevor Lawrence and Dak Prescott and stuff like that. I mean, that's in a superflex. How does that happen?
Yeah, and again, that guy already took 2 quarterbacks, so I'm sure he didn't take a 3rd. Now, I took 3 quarterbacks in a row in a startup last year, and people were like, what is wrong with you? But it was just like the 3rd quarterback got to me, and he was the best value there. And it was like 1 quarterback and then a huge gap between any of the other quarterbacks. And I was like, I'm just going to go quarterback again. I'm like, screw it. I'll take 3 of them. I don't know how many times I've got screwed with injuries and stuff happens, and then I'm stuck with 1 QB. So I was like, I'm just going to take 3 QBs to start off the bat. Now, is that my ideal strategy? Absolutely not. But sometimes, you do got to make that move. So I think you look at that, and I think sometimes people are looking at position-wise there, and they're taking other positions where I've been like, I would have taken QB over all these position players in the 4th round.
Yeah, Vince, why did you take Rashee Rice over Trevor Lawrence? He's in our chat right now, so I'm curious to hear a live action response.
My guess is because he has Josh Allen and Drake May, which I love that at 110, 1-3, and 210. I mean, I love those 2 picks to start, and then JSN after that. But that would have been my guess.
And it's only 15 rounds, so you're only going to take 2 quarterbacks, not a 3rd quarterback here. But I'm just wondering how the rest of the field, let quarterbacks go, but in front of Rashee Rice, that kind of stuff, or past Rashee Rice. How did Trevor Lawrence and Baker Mayfield and those guys come anywhere in the area? So I get your draft set because Jaguars. Shut your face. Trevor Lawrence is going to be awesome.
So guys, as you guys are giving your analysis, I'm going through team by team and just looking at rosters that just jump out. And this individual was in our IDP startup also, and I'm talking about Jace turn 3. This guy's draft for me just reeks of elite. Starting with Jamar Chase, then going Bo Nix, Devon Achane, Bucky Irving, Xavier Worthy, Hubbard, Anthony Richardson in the 7th round, followed by Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid. Man, that is a pretty good start right there. Like you got the veteran presence in Jamar Chase, but then you have some ascending talent and the value you could be getting with Anthony Richardson if he's able to turn this thing around in Indianapolis. I mean, I don't know about you, John. Is this the team that jumps out to you the most as far as just like a holy crap, this is an excellent build for a startup?
Yeah, he took 4 quarterbacks on his 15-round team, and I guess that would be like a regular anticipating a 30 round or a 25 round startup. That's probably somewhere similar to what I would do. Just make sure I have a solid quarterback core. But yeah, Jamar Chase, like I said before, Jamar Chase, Jefferson, those are the only people I would take in front of a quarterback. Those are, those guys are going to be top producers for a long time. So Bo Nix showed a lot right now. He looks like he's going to be a steady contributor. I'm not a big A-Chain fan. I'm not a big Bucky Irving fan. Xavier Worthy, he's got a lot of potential, but he seems like a best ball player more than anything else. But Chuba Hubbard's, I don't know what. You guys love Anthony Richardson. I can't stand Anthony Richardson. I wouldn't want him on any one of my teams.
Don't put me into this. No.
You can just say me. You can say me. I love Anthony Richardson, but
I mean, even if it's just for, let's just say we're talking about Dynasty and you're looking at a 2-year window. Even if you're just getting this guy for fantasy points, if he's not winning games, he's not getting you fantasy points for many years because he sucks. Like if he's going to get pulled off the field all the time, or not going to trust him, or the locker rooms, what happens when he gets the 6 or 7 or negative point games because he gets hurt after a couple plays, or he throws 3 interceptions, get pulled off the field again. I don't know what they're going to do. Indianapolis better think about they're getting another quarterback soon, because I'm not sure Anthony Richardson is the future. And if that was your first, if that was your second quarterback, it's Anthony Richardson, then you got Derek Carr, who might not even have a job this year. Same with Kirk Cousins. Like, I'm not a big fan of that build. Like, you got Bo Nix as far as I'm concerned. That's the only quarterback you really have on this team. So, but I mean, Jamar Chase, Bo Nix, and then after that, you guys might like that team, but I'm not a big fan of it.
To me, AR, whether you're a believer or not, I still believe him if the team believes him and gives him a shot. Because obviously, if they're going to do what they did last year with him and pull him every couple games because they're frustrated, then I'm out, because he's never going to develop if you're going to do that with him. Getting him in the 7th is just insane. He was a first rounder almost everywhere last year, or at least beginning of the second round guy. So getting him in the 7th, if that's me, I'm pulling the trigger, because even if he ends up sucking, I'm willing to take the shot on his upside in the 7th. I really am. So I love that there. Talking about teams that jumped out at me when just kind of looking through the team and the build I really liked what Gary did at 1-5. Going Burrow, I love Brock Bowers. So getting Brock Bowers at 2-8, some might say that's too early for a tight end, but in my eyes, Brock Bowers isn't a tight end. He's literally a wide receiver. I mean, he's playing a wide receiver role. He's getting that many looks, and it's a premium. I love it. Then you come back. If Higgins goes back to Cincinnati and plays with Bowers, great. You got the double up there. I love that. If he doesn't, Higgins is probably going somewhere else and being number 1. So I like that. Then me and John love T-Law. T-Law in the 4th. I know people hate on T-Law because he was the number 1 pick. He was supposed to be the greatest thing ever. He fought through injuries big time last year. He was playing through injuries. That team's been a mess. I think the coaching change is going to be huge for him. If you still look at his stats, I know they didn't blow you away, but people act like he was straight garbage, and he wasn't. I mean, he actually was still a pretty decent QB with not a lot of help. Now's the time to buy. If you still believe in T-Law, I do. I know John does. I know a lot of people are out on him. But if you believe in him, now's the time to buy. I don't think you're going to ever get him cheaper this year unless he just completely falls apart again and is out. But I don't think that's going to happen. Because, again, if you really look at his career stats, they've been solid. Have they been world beaters? No, but they've been solid stats. I love him in the 4th. Then, there you pass on Whiteout early, so you got to kind of figure out what you're doing. Devontae Smith, I love. Waddle, I think, is going to have a bounce back year. I like Pearsall, especially. It sounds like they're going to move on from some of their wide receivers. So I like those 3 guys in a row. Now, running back's a little rough. I love those 3 guys in a row. Yeah. The running back's a little rough here with Spears and Warren. I like Warren a lot. Spears, I'm like, I'm okay on Spears. But here's what I'm doing if I'm in this league and I took this startup, my rookie draft, running back. Right. I'm just gonna take all running backs and hope one of those guys hit to fill in my roster, because I love what I have at wide. I love Burrow, Lawrence, Bowers, Higgins, Smith, Waddle, Pearsall as my starters. Now I just need to find some running backs. So I love what Gary did. And then the other one that kind of jumped out at me was a little bit of a different build if you didn't go QB early, but that was Pragmatic Porter. I like the neighbors, Lamb neighbors back to back, then going Kyler Murray in the third, Cook and Jacobs really solid fourth, fifth. I know John absolutely freaking can't stand Tua, and I know a lot of people else can't stand Tua, but getting Tua at 6'10" to me as your second QB, I like that value. I mean, you don't have to be the biggest Tua lover to love him in the 6th round. So I like that value there. And then a little older tight end, which I don't think is a problem at all with Kelsey and Ingram, threw Rodgers in there just in case. But I like Mike Evans to add with those guys. I think it's a really nice starting lineup there too. So I like what Prismatic Porter and Gary MF 5000 did. I just, a little bit different builds, but I like what they did.
John, what teams stand out to you when we're looking at this draft board currently?
Oh man,
you can say it's fine. It's cool.
That number 12 guy, man. What the hell was he doing? No, there's not. Everybody has, like every draft. There's not one team that's just like the red carpet was rolled out for this team. We're so good. A lot of guys.
Let me rephrase it like this: which build resembles one that you would probably do?
Yeah.
Well, John, I was going to pull up this question because this is John. It says Vince said currently doing a dynasty startup now have 4 QBs through 11 rounds. This reminds me a little more of you, John. Your style. You tend in startups to go QB heavy,
and
you say like I'd rather have QB than anything else. So I know you're a big QB guy for startups. I've seen you kind of pile up on QBs. I don't hate that strategy at all. No one went crazy QB heavy. Obviously, Colin went the most QB heavy, going Herbert, Caleb Williams first 2 rounds, and then McCarthy in the 5th, taking 3 of his first 5. I actually kind of liked that startup there as far as if you were going QB heavy draft. Any of these other ones stick out to you? Because I know you are a guy that when it comes to startup drafts, you love to make sure you're set at QB.
A lot of my teams have like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, or Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, things like that. I'll trade up in the front. I will get rid of startup like 3rd round picks and 4th round picks and stuff like that to make sure that if I can get 2 quarterbacks in the first round, especially the first like 7 quarterbacks ish, if I can get, I don't have to worry about a quarterback position for the rest of my life in this league pretty much. The guys who go and they try to play the funny game of getting Anthony Richardson as their set quarterback 2, or Derek Carr as their quarterback 2, or maybe praying for Justin Fields, or even Brock Purdy's a question mark at this point in time. Baker Mayfield's on a tear right now. I mean, he's probably, but Sam Darnold, he's not guaranteed anything. He might go somewhere else and choke. I don't know. If I could start out and lose, my 3rd round pick, or trade from 200 something to get 107, and then get rid of my 3rd round pick 2, or my 4th round pick to move up in the first round, and somebody else gets 2 extra picks, I'm going to do that in a heartbeat in every draft to make sure I get 2 solid quarterbacks. I can always trade for tight ends or receivers or running backs, stuff like that later. Running backs, I mean, you could have just punted on running backs the entire season last year and walked in your rookie draft this year and got 5 awesome running backs with rookie picks and rebuild your entire team around rookie running backs. So I need to get quarterbacks to start that's my anchor. And then JT, my second favorite position. It's going to be tight ends. I'm going to get the Bowers. I'm going to get the McBrides. I'm going to get the guys like the Laportas and, that kind of stuff. So I need to solidify the quarterback and the tight end position. So like JT, Jorge, I like how you did, the Stroud, Love, and McBride build. I'm not a huge fan of even McLaurin or McCaffrey or, Jameson Williams. I like your build, but I think I would have inserted like different players in those. I would have got Caleb Williams and then probably taken like Brock Bowers or something like that, kind of. But you're in the build that I like. That's kind of my build. I like your vision on that one.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing too. Like, I like Jorge. I like what you did there because I love getting Stroud at the end of the first round. I'm not a huge Jordan Love guy, but that's part of my Packers hate as someone who lives in Illinois. But he's a good fantasy player, so I'm not going to hate you on that. I love McBride at 3-1 because if I'm in a tight end premium, I have to be honest. Like, I've got my eye on Bowers, McBride, Laporta as my top 3, and Bowers, McBride are my top 2 guys hard. I really want one of those guys if I can in the first 3 rounds. Because then, like John said, now I know I've got a stud at tight end. I can wait and take another guy that I think has good upside. That's like, the 14th, 15th tight end. So I love that there. I know you're a Commanders guy. I like Terry McLaurin. I think he's got a bunch left, especially now they have a QB. So I don't mind that pick, especially when I look at the other wide receivers that were available there.
I think he's bought high on McLaurin right now is my biggest fear. I think that McLaurin had the best season of his career, and he's in a spotlight right now. But he's been a wide receiver 2, low wide receiver 3 for his whole career. And this year he's wide receiver 7 or something like that. So it was all touchdown dependent too, kind of stuff like that. I just think that he's overrated right now. And I know as a Commanders fan, of course you're going to take a Commanders guy. That's there's no problem with that whatsoever. But McLaurin's already he's 29, almost 30, and he had the best season of his career right now. I think there's nothing but regression in Terry McLaurin's game right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like McLaurin still, and go ahead and jump here, Jorge, and say why you were on McLaurin here.
Yeah, so I definitely wanted to create like a spectrum at the wide receiver position from like somebody that I know had a good year this year that, to John's point, is an older wide receiver. But then to follow that up with, McCaffrey at that point, assuming he's healthy, again, much like in a situation that you were mentioning, JT, my running backs, McCaffrey, Connor, and Charbonnet, I'm hammering in my rookie draft running backs like to save my life, right? But I wanted to get one core of player or position kind of nailed down. So I do like the McLaurin thing. I do like him and Jaden Daniels for the next few years. I love Jameson Williams. I thought you saw more of his route running ability come into form this year in Detroit. Love Jalen McMillan. I don't think Chris Godwin goes back to Tampa Bay, and I think McMillan takes over that role there. We saw him finish the season strong. Josh Downs, like whoever was the quarterback, he was getting the ball from that quarterback.
Love that pick. He easily could be their wide receiver 1, and you got him in the 8th round.
Yeah, I love Downs.
He had, if it wasn't for injuries, he would have had. I still think he might have ended up having almost the best season in Colts history as a rookie wide receiver, and then was really good again last year, even with the not good quarterback play, which you got to hope you got to think it's going to improve. Even if it is AR and he's not great, he's got to be better this year than last year. He's got to be. So I like Downs there. I still think that's a nice move. Connor, they signed to 2 more years. You got to figure if you're going McCaffrey, I love going Connor there too, because then you're going, okay, I'm going 2 years of McCaffrey and Connor. I'm going to draft young running backs and hopefully replace those guys over the next 2 years.
I would have took Devonta Smith and Rome Odunze at that, where you took McLaurin and McCaffrey. I think that's where I would have done for my future.
That question is whether you like those guys as much. So that's what I was going to say. If you wanted to go young, I could see going like Worthy, Odunze, Flowers in that spot. But like you said, you wanted that anchor of that guy you can count on as kind of your main guy with Williams and McMillan and Downs going after that. So that's why I can see you going there. I mean, I like the upside of Waddle. I like the upside of Olave and Addison.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of those guys are possibly going to be their wide receiver 2 on their team. And we've seen, they haven't been super consistent. So getting a guy consistent, in there, because there's a lot of wideouts in that next 3 rounds I like. But we've seen all those guys are either young, haven't totally shown out yet, or are a little bit older and haven't been totally consistent all the time. A Metcalf, a Waddle, a George Pickens, who I love, but hasn't been super consistent. DJ Moore, does he continue to lose a little bit of, I think he's really good. I like where he went at 6'11", but does he lose a little bit to Odunze in year 2? So again, right there in the middle, you can see that round 5 to 8 is going to be a lot of decision making for people on wide receivers, because there are so many guys so close, depending on what kind of build you're having and who you have a little more confidence in. Because again, I like Pittman a ton, but I'd almost rather have Downs at 8-12 than Pittman at 8-1.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I feel like I'm a sniper on this. When I'm doing this kind of stuff, I feel like I'm a sniper and the enemy doesn't know I'm coming right now. I can sit back and look at all these picks and be like, yeah, because when you're in these drafts, you don't know you have no idea where these guys are going to go. It's so nice to look back and see what you could have done and what you should have done and this and that. You don't have that luxury when you're drafting. You're not sure where these guys are going. You're guessing the best you can on the run. So this is not kind of unfair it's like playing chess against like a 4-year-old or something. It's like it's almost unfair. We had this advantage to see where people went, and I should have done that stuff. But I don't I don't fault any of these picks. If McCaffrey comes back and I would have took, and I was just, like I was saying, I just took Rome Odunze. He didn't really pan out this year, and McCaffrey's the league-winning running back because he's a RB1 again. Look, I look like a jackass because I took a guy like Rome Odunze who everybody, he's on reception procession, the green across the whole chart, and he's the best thing ever, but who knows? Right. And Devonta Smith is a wide receiver 2 on his own team. We're hoping that A.J. Brown maybe slows down a little bit, or they don't draft a third receiver that's really good. So I'm looking at like guys I really like a lot instead of older guys like the McLaurin and McCaffrey. But man, if McLaurin does have another wide receiver 7 year this year, and McCaffrey comes back healthy and leads the league and everything again, I mean, you just won. You won the league. Right. So
it definitely was taking a lot of gambles in this one with that in mind. And then for my 2 tight ends, with Goddard being my tight end 2, and I'm assuming the Commanders will find a way to bring back Ertz on a short deal. Like I understand when I wanted to have at least some depth there. Marvin Mims, you saw some rapport with him and Bo Nix. Is that just a couple game fluke? Who knows? But at that point in the draft, I thought that was an okay thing. Keenan Allen, though, the third to last pick there, wherever he goes, the guy is trusted by the quarterback who's throwing him the ball. And I feel, he may not be with Chicago. I don't, John, you probably know more than me, being, close to Chicago, knowing what the pulse is on Keenan Allen, whether or not he'll be re-signed by the Bears or not. But taking him over, on Amari Cooper, a Dontavian Wicks, a Coker, a Donovan Mitchell, a Douglas, a Whittington, I like the fact that he is trusted a lot by the quarterbacks who are throwing him the ball. And then last week when this draft was taking place, T. Higgins hadn't been franchise tagged yet. And my thought process was like, well, if Higgins is gone and they don't address the wide receiver in the draft or in free agency, then Burton has a clear path to snaps. And so he could potentially be the new number 2 there in Cincinnati. So a lot of, maybe woulda, coulda, shouldas to end the draft. But again, like you were saying early on in the draft with the McCaffreys and the McLaurins, again, hoping for upside, really there.
I look at like Jatavian Sanders. I probably would have taken instead of Keenan Allen there, and then got something else besides Ertz later on. Even though Ertz did very well last year, I mean, he really did really well. But I mean, JT knows my love for Ben Sinnott, so I think Ben Sinnott is the future in Washington. To be honest with you,
I love Goddard in the 12th. Goddard in the 12th is super nice. He's constantly underrated. Now you're going to deal with some injuries with him, but when he plays, he's been really good. So that I love that pick for you to get him in the 12 because you went McBride super early. I loved him in the 12. I love Freiermuth in the 12. I think those are both just fantastic picks. I thought it was interesting, just we see what the difference a year makes sometimes. Bucky Irving, 4.6.
Right.
White 12-2. All of a sudden he drops 8 rounds behind him. I mean, the supposed starter, because that's how much people like Bucky more than him. I mean, that's a huge, huge difference. And now I know we got into a couple podcasts last year, Jorge, where me and you were defending our position on why we thought Rachaad White sucked. And I want to say we were correct on why he sucked. So we won that argument for sure. So Bucky going 8 rounds bet, of course, now he is, because now you see Bucky, what he did last year. I mean, Rachaad White, I hate to tell you this, he's going to be dust here soon. He is going to be absolute dust here soon in fantasy. It sucks for people, but that's the case. I was going to look at some other picks. What'd you say, John?
Christian Kirk at 14-1 is a nice pick.
Because he's going to be a guy that's going to be kind of slept on. You know what I'm saying? He's going to fall apart because of the injury. You don't 100% know what's going on. You saw Brian Thomas kind of break out, but again, I still think there's plenty of room for Brian Thomas, Kirk, Ingram there. I still think there's room for all those guys to be fantasy relevant. The interesting thing I think is going to be is if you're doing your startup draft now before the NFL draft, and then you're doing your rookie draft after your startup draft, after the NFL draft, man, some of these running backs are going to take a monster hit.
Yeah.
Depending on what teams take running backs. I mean, there's a chance that a Stevenson, a Pacheco, an Aaron Jones, a DeAndre Swift, there's a chance all those guys are going to take a huge hit. A J.K. Dobbins, if they all take running back in the first, second, third, even fourth round, of a high-end guy, some of these guys' values are going to plummet. But that's why I like what you did, Jorge, without the rookies in there. I think I love what you did early. And that's where I'm just like, oh, I'm hammering running back in the rookie draft, especially with this season going on. And again, say San Francisco takes a guy fairly early. I don't think Arizona would because they took Benson last year. I would have loved if you could have got Connor and Benson. I would have absolutely loved that. You took Charbonnet because Benson went in front of you. But if you could have got Connor and Benson, I would have been like, bam, I love that in a dynasty. I would have loved that backup there. But some of these teams, like if you took DeAndre Swift, you're going to have to be paying attention to what the Bears are doing. I would be very shocked if they don't take a running back at some point in this draft. Plus, and this, I'm just throwing out devil's advocate. What the Bears take Ginty at 10?
No way.
They did. DeAndre Swift is damn near dead. I mean, he's still on the team, but like Ginty's going to be the man. But same thing. Aaron Jones. I like Aaron Jones. I still think he's going to be around, but I think Minnesota's going running back.
Sure.
I think KC's going to go running back. I think Pacheco's in trouble. I traded for him in a league where a guy was trying to get assets to win now, and my team was falling apart with injuries. So I traded for a bunch of injured players and then turned around and traded them when they came back. I didn't want any. I got Pacheco off my team the second I could get him off my team.
Yeah,
because I was like, if I can get a second rounder for him, I want him because I want to take a rookie running back instead.
Yeah,
Washington, Brian Robinson, I like, but I think there's a chance they're going running back. I think the Giants go running back, even though Tyrone Tracy was pretty good. So these running back values could drastically change. And if I'm doing a startup before this, if my league is literally doing one before the NFL draft happens and rookies are not involved, I think I'm waiting on running back.
Waiting big
even
time,
more than I normally would, unless I'm taking Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, JT, Breece Hall. Literally, I think outside of those 4 or 5, I think everybody else I'm real nervous about. I think a ton of teams can go running back in this draft. I mean, this is a 20 plus deep running back draft. Even teams that don't need running back are going to take a guy just in case.
Yeah, Cincinnati.
Let me get a couple comments in the chat real quick before we keep going.
Yeah, jump in.
So Jamie's in here. First of all, Jamie, thank you very much for tuning in. Vince, thank you very much for tuning in. Damn, back-to-back shows. Holy, just wait till we go 3 shows back-to-back on Mondays going forward. It's you haven't seen anything yet. We're junkies for this stuff. Let's see here. Vince is in the chat. Mims is going to skyrocket this year. I hope you're right. Old man Keenan Allen's ankles. Come on, man. Like, let's scare the bejesus out of me. Burton will be cut. Sorry, Jorge. Oh, that sucks. Vince back here saying, I'm definitely leaning light running back dynasty builds this offseason. Rookies could supplant a bunch of good 2024 options, much like to what you gentlemen were just talking about. Jamie jumping back here in the end of the chat here over on YouTube. And again, folks, if you're watching, head over to our YouTube channel or wherever you're watching. Drop comments. Let us know what you think. Ask us what we had to drink today. I had Red Bull and this awesome Conway's Ale from Great Lakes Brewery, unofficial sponsors here at Fantasy and Friends. Jamie asks, is Tank Dell even draftable? It's going to be over a year before he comes back. John, is he draftable for you?
Yeah, so is Jonathan Brooks, but I'll take both those guys later and stick them on my IR. And there's like, what happens if you can't hold them on the IR for a year or two? I guess the big ultimate question is, how deep is your league? If you have a 20-team league, maybe not. Maybe I'll try to sneak them off the waivers or wait for someone to drop them in a crunch. If I have 30-team rosters with a 10 IR like I have in most of my dynasty home leagues, sure, I'm taking them. Yeah, I'll stuff Tank Dell on the and Jonathan Brooks on the IR. And if at the end of the season after our rookie drafts, we have to clear our entire IR, so it's just 30 people on your roster whatsoever. You can't do that's it. No IR, no taxi, no nothing. It's got to be just 30 men on your roster, and then you could plug and play after everybody's the free agent pool's open. But yeah, I mean, Tank Dell is draftable, but later drafts for sure. That's what you got to do. And Jamie, let me ask you a question: how deep is your league? How many spots do you have? Because that's going to answer your question. If you only have 18 or 20 players, then no, he's probably not draftable this year.
Well, and again, if depending on how many you start, if you're starting a 10 to 12 team league, starting 10 to 12 players, like I don't want one of those guys in my top 10. Right. Like taking the guys to be on my IR all season. Like, no, I mean, I'll take a guy like that and I'll put him on my IR, but I'm not taking him that early. I mean, I was trying to see where Tank Dell went on this. I think did Brooks win 11?
He went in the 8th round.
11-6. So yeah, Tank Dell won the 8th and Brooks won in the 11th. Those are both pushing it for me.
Yeah, they are.
I don't think I can take them that high.
No.
I mean, I'll take them. I don't think I can take them that high. I mean, I'm taking those guys over a guy that is probably going to be a flex play for me or a backup.
The good thing is, if you're not winning later in the season, you could trade one of your players that's older and not, you're not in the playoffs or something. You could trade one of those older guys or a 4th round pick for Tank Dell when those guys are getting real squirrely about getting in the playoffs, that kind of stuff. So you can get them cheaper. Let somebody else draft him and then trade for him later in the season.
There we go. Gentlemen, before we get out of here for the evening, is there any takeaway from, again, like I mentioned earlier, this is an assessment of looking at player value right now, snapshot, February 19th, right after the Super Bowl, a couple weeks of what a dynasty startup would be. And of course, we will have one closer to the NFL draft. And then after the NFL draft, we'll include the rookies, obviously. So we're giving you 3 different time points of assessing player values and where they're at. Seeing how free agency impacts this is going to be something we look at also. But if you were just looking right here, right now, what is maybe 1 or 2 takeaways you want to give fantasy managers who are degenerates like us, who are doing startups at this point with vets only? What advice would you want to give them? Or maybe is there a trend that you're seeing here on the draft board that you kind of want to either encourage or warn people to kind of hold off on at this point in the year? JT, let's start with you.
So some of the older players that we're not 100% sure where they're going to end up on, there's a chance you can get better value on those guys if you're ready to take a swing at them. A Cooper Kupp at 9.9, not knowing where he's going to play next year right now. You can kind of get a value on him. Tyreek Hill 7.2. Is he going to play again? Is he going to be on the Dolphins? Is he going to be somewhere else? Some of these guys, we're not sure. Sam Darnold 7.11. Where's he going? Is he going to start? Is he going to go somewhere and get signed, and then they're going to draft a rookie early, and he's only going to get you 1 year until that guy's ready? What kind of deal is he getting? A 2-year deal, a 4-year deal? So I think sometimes if you're doing the startup this early, you really got to decide what list of guys are you willing to take a chance on, and saying like, how early do I want to take? All those guys I would take in a startup league. The question is, how high do you want to take them? How much are you willing to risk that they end up in a bad spot or on a bad team? And then you're like, ugh, and they fall off the wagon like right away. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I thought I had 2 good years left, and now this guy's horrible right now. So I think you definitely need to evaluate those things. And definitely, I know you don't have the rookie draft going in this. Look at some mocks and see where people think some of these guys are going. Because obviously, I'm very wary of running back on some of these teams and how early I would take any of these guys, assuming that they're going to take running back in the draft. So that would be something that I would really be keeping an eye on and not going too early. Not that I wouldn't take guys, but they definitely pushes a few of these guys down 2 or 3 rounds for me when I don't know who they're going to be competing against for the starting job. So I still would take a lot of these guys. I'm just not going to take them as early as if I knew exactly what their starting position would be, what team they're going to be on, and who they're going to be competing against. So those are things I definitely, at this time of year, if I'm actually doing a startup, I want to take those things in consideration, and I want to take the sure things early in my draft. I want to know the guys are definitely going to be there, where they're going to be. They're not competing for a starting job. They have their role set. Definitely in the first 3 to 4 rounds, I want to make sure those are the guys I'm taking for sure early, and then kind of can fill in and take some chances on some guys later that it's not going to absolutely bury my team. But you don't want to bury yourself 2nd, 3rd, 4th round with a bunch of question marks, and all of a sudden everything falls apart on you.
What about you, John?
I'm going to say you could probably take a picture of this draft board, and probably round 1, most of round 2, and most of round 3 are probably going to be pretty similar to where we're at right now. Other than that, this entire board is going to be like mixing paint colors together or playing with Play-Doh. It's going to be all different colors, all different shapes, all different everything like that. because with these rookies, especially we don't know landing spots yet or the draft capital, they are going to shake up the rest of the draft board after round 3. It's going to look nothing like this. Like where the draft, you're going to get a Lad McConkey might move up a little bit if they don't draft a receiver, or a couple other guys might move up, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it is going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if most of these guys don't move at least 5 or 6 spots from where they're at right now in a good or a bad direction. With the rookies being thrown in, you might see Genty or Omarion Hampton if he goes to the Cowboys or something like that. Like you might see those kind of things shake up the first 3 rounds. But for the most part, don't bank on anything past these guys. And injuries that somebody might twist their leg or do something else in camp. You never know what's going to happen with any of this stuff. But with injury wise, man, I look at these. It's fun to do these drafts, and it's fun to document how far they've gone, how trend these guys, and see how far they're trending up or down throughout the offseason process, and try and take advantage of that. If you see somebody dropping down, if you like we just talked about it, like if you see Tank Dell keep dropping down, and he's in round 14 or 15 or 16, he keeps dropping, man, pull the trigger on him at round 16. That's fine. You get him way better than the 12th or 13th or 14th. He's getting drafted right now, or even the 8th round, that kind of stuff. So just keep drafting. Like once, pay attention to these mock drafts we have in Fantasy and Frames and some of the other sites you pay attention to, and just keep watching where this stuff goes, because these drafts they tell a lot about where people are at. Look at Keep Trade Cut. Look at a couple of these other sites. Look at everybody else's rankings and see where people are going. Right now we're just speculating, but until after the draft, it's going to be kind of stagnant. But they are going to change big time by the time we get to August.
Absolutely. Before we get out of here, let's plug some stuff. John, what would you like to plug for the masses out there?
I like to plug Fantasy and Frames because that's where I work at, and it's awesome. That's it's cool. I get to go here and talk on a podcast with JT and you guys, and talk about rookies and stuff. Other than that, you can find me on John Glenn 75. I try to do some of those other social media stuff, but I kind of get lost in it. So Twitter's kind of my game here, and then doing these podcasts and just posting them on wherever I can. But I'm kind of boring. I just like to watch football and go to the bar and drink beers and eat chicken wings and watch football and play fantasy football. And that's kind of what you do, man. That's what it's all about. Like I said, this is my fishing, my hunting, my chess, my painting, this is my release, So
love it. Effing love it. I'll Venmo you the money for the kind comments. JT, anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, if you're interested in getting in rookie mock drafts, not startup mocks, because that's what we do here. If you want to get into these startup mocks, get a hold of you or Fantasy and Frames, jump on there and say, if you want to get in some of the rookie mocks that I'm going to be doing on the Stew with JT Brew, usually have one every week. I got way behind, not going to have one this week, but I'm going to try to get one next week. Looking at a start two tight end, 2-point premium, really kind of mix things up on the rookie side. So if you want to get that, shoot me a message at JT Orange. If you're not on X or the Twitter, you can feel free to email me at jtorange4@gmail.com, jtorange4@gmail.com. You can say, hey, hit me up. I'll send you a link, email you a link to Sleeper while we're doing those drafts. Usually we do those either Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights, kind of around whatever else is going on here on Fantasy Frame. So check that out. Also, obviously, watch me and John on Dynasty Evaluation doing all the rookie spotlights right now, having a lot of fun, a lot of really good guests, kind of talking about players, getting a good idea. If you don't watch a lot of college football, if you don't play C2C, you don't do Devy, this is a good time to kind of learn who these players are. Kind of going into the draft. So get a good idea on that. So that's always a good one. And then if you're into rankings, all that stuff, you can find a lot of my content, articles, everything on DLF, dynastyleaguefootball.com. I've got my IDP rankings up there, my rookie IDP and my Devy rankings. I also have a lot of spotlight videos coming out where we kind of, again, do a lot of the same stuff me and John do on podcast form. I do in written form there as far as rookie content. I've got one QB Dynasty rankings, how I would draft players and where I'd rank them coming out this weekend on DLF. So check that out as well. And just all off season, man. We're going to be talking drafts. This is draft, and more draft. I love it. One of my favorite times of year. So I love doing these mock drafts. I love talking rookies. I love all that stuff.
Jamie, I just saw your comment here that says C2C too much work. Okay. I thought that 2 years ago. I joined a C2C league, and I don't even do redraft anymore, almost because of C2C, because C2C is so much fun. It's absolutely wonderful. Like my entire offseason has been, I'm like drooling, waiting to get in the next player all the time. These rookies coming up, watching film, watching college football. I'm a Big Ten guy, but now the Big Ten expanded, the playoffs come. Like college football is it's like March Madness of fantasy football is like watching C2C stuff. It's so cool, man. I don't mock it till you try it, brother, because you're gonna love it.
I had to get John in one. He loved it. The best thing about C2C is if you're winning your league and you feel like you're always getting screwed and never getting the top end rookies, you can get them in C2C because they're already on your team and they transfer over. You can get you in one season. I got CJ Stroud, Brock Bowers, and Marvin Harrison Jr. all on my same team on my NFL team. That's how it's done. That's why I love it, because you don't have to draft them in that spot. You get them moved over. So that's the fun part of C2C. Makes things a little bit different. You can also kind of do that with Devi as well. So if you don't want the full C2C, I'm such a college fan. I just love doing the college side too. But always can ask those questions. As John knows, I play in every league. I don't think there's a single style league that I don't play in. Best ball Dynasty, everything, IDP, Best Ball Dynasty, IDP Redraft, C2C, CFF Redraft, and Dynasty. I played all. So got any of those questions, feel free to hit me up. I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my abilities.
And you can check out myself and JT on Shoot the Gap every Wednesday. And then Drew Scott will be returning for Dynasty 365 with JT and myself. And then we got Fourth and Frames, our redraft show, coming out when we get close to free agency and going forward there. Again, Dynasty Evaluation with John and JT, the Stew with JT, Brew with JT. Pretty soon we're going to have the Fantasy and Frames draft show coming back. All sorts of content, written content, our rankings over at fantasyandframes.com. Don't forget to check over the website. Go to the YouTube channel, subscribe there. If you like the show, or if you've been fans of the show for some time, you can now follow us directly via podcast by subscribing to the Dynasty 365 podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Our TikToks, our YouTube shorts, all sorts of content, however you want to slice it. We got it coming your way. So we really appreciate you all for tuning in. Thank you to everybody who participated in the mocks. We'll have more of those going as we can. So for JT, for John, again, John, thank you very much for joining. I'm Jorge, and we will see you all next week.